Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is February 1st, 2026. This is episode 21. If you're new to my podcast, this is a conservative-leaning podcast, but I do take in both sides. Now, excuse me, I still have my cold that I've had for the last 6 months. It won't seem like I'm taking both sides of an issue here today. And this week I've been dealing with the ICE issue, and not the weather ice that's happening here in South Carolina. Of course, we're talking about immigration and why we found ourselves in the situation we are in today. And if you look back in my week's podcast, I explain why we're there. I'm finishing it up. Today is Sunday. I'm taking this out, and I'm of course not done with the ICE, as it is a continuing and evolving situation. But I am talking about the democratic-induced violence that is taking place and who's behind it. And it's real interesting stuff, folks. And of course, to progressives, it's all lies, and everyone that is okay with ICE is a racist and a fascist and a Nazi. Look at my show yesterday about Kathy Griffin, and she is the definition of what a Nazi is. Just going to say it. And I do say it. All right, today, in episode 21, the Democratic violent, illogical debate over ICE, the fighting that the Democrats are doing. And I'm going to finish it up today, but of course we'll continue as it evolves. A political action committee which backed Kamala Harris's campaign appears to have scrubbed its website after it was caught soliciting donations through a text mentioning Alex Pretty. Now, Pretty was shot by ICE agents during a scuffle that he injected himself into while ICE agents were making an arrest or subduing another person who had injected themselves into the operations and the interference of the duties of an ICE agent. He was caught with a gun. They took the gun, and then he was shot. And he was shot numerous times. So this website was caught soliciting donations through a text mentioning Alex Pretty, and this was a Kamala Harris-backed group, after border agents fatally shot him in Minneapolis. Multiple X accounts posted screenshots of a fundraising text message sent from a toll-free number Saturday beginning with the words, "Alex Pretty is the limit," and calling on people to stand with us, donate $50 for a 200% match. The message had appeared to have linked to a donation landing page for Democratic Youth Wave PAC, hosted by leading Democratic fundraising platform Act Blue. Texas went after Act Blue. Both the page and the PAC's website, however, were taken down at the time when this news organization was looking into it. So this is a political action committee, PAC, funded organization that had backed Kamala Harris with lots of money. This group is still active. Of course, Act Blue is still very active in the socialist and communist backed agenda of a lot of candidates and a lot of state attorney generals and state and city district attorneys. Efforts to disrupt federal law enforcement in Minnesota have united many organizations and individuals associated with mainstream Democratic Party with self-described communist and socialist activities. And this was reported by the Washington Examiner. And it reviewed political emails and social media posts to come to that conclusion. Now, again, nothing illegal about what was being done. There is no political testing. So if they want to be communist or socialist, have at it. You can do that. That's perfectly legitimate to do. It's how the money is saying it's being collected and for what reason. That is where a lot of these groups get in trouble, because the money might, they might mention Priddy's name, who was the criminal who was shot by ICE agents. But that money might not even go to any of that. It just might go into a general pot and go out to whatever. And I think that's what got them kind of in trouble. And this is just such a tactic that the Democrats use. It's just funding hate groups, collecting money, and lying. That's what they do. Bob, in New York, you could just, you could say otherwise, but I would advise you to look at the Washington Examiner on their lengthy review of these groups. In recent weeks, mainstream Democrats have sent messages to their supporters via emails and social media groups, inciting them to either donate money to groups staging protests in Minneapolis and elsewhere, or join them personally in challenging law enforcement. These leftist groups include avowed communists, are taking a leading role in organizing these same demonstrations. Now, again, there's nothing illegal about that. There's nothing criminal about that. So I'm not saying, hey, we got to stop these people and we got to go after these. No, not at all. They can do it. It's legal. So their right to protest is as being a communist and being an American citizen is your right, because there is no political test, meaning there isn't one form dictated under the Constitution or a set form. You could either be this, or this. You can't be anything else. So that's not the case. The case is you want to be socialist, you want to be communist, you want to be progressive, you want to be a Democrat, you want to be a Republican, you want to be a liberal, you want to be an independent. Have at it. You want to be green. That's all allowed. And they're allowed, if they form a political action committee, a PAC, and they must follow the rules set forth in those arrangements, like a 501c, and they have to show where the money's coming from and where the money's going to, and how they collect it, and what means they collect it in. Bernie Sanders and AOC are very successful in their going out and collecting dimes, quarters, and dollars at colleges, which add up to a lot of money. They're very successful at that. And that's perfectly legal. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying it should be stopped or anything. No, that's the process. Pointing out, though, that these groups that a lot of this money is going to are groups that actively engage their organizations and then incite their followers to a point where they become criminal. And we've seen that time after time after time. Acorn, Antifa, Black Lives Matter. And in the case of all those groups, a huge amount of fraud in how they collected money, how they distributed money, and what they used their money for, that they said they were collecting it, and then it just got scattered in the wind. And in a lot of cases, people pocketed the money. And they've been convicted of it. So, and not to say that there have not been Republicans who have used funds collected for their campaigns and stuff and skimmed off the top or sent it to a relative or played hanky-panky, and they got arrested too. The law is the law, right? So that's, I don't have a problem with those people being arrested. None whatsoever. And that's where I'm fair, Bob. Now, if you want to point those people out, start your own podcast. So, Democrats such as former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Representative Sarah Jacobs, Democrat California, Representative Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat New York, one of the most crime-ridden neighborhoods in New York City. Representative Lizzie Fletcher, Democrat Texas, as well as a host of state lawmakers and congressional candidates have all called on their supporters to use standwithminnesota.com, a webpage purportedly maintained by local activists, to donate to organizations doing the work on the ground in Minneapolis. So, and again, there's nothing wrong if that money is being used for what they're saying it's being used for. And if you want to donate your money to those causes, go ahead. It's when those groups are saying, we're going to use that for on-the-ground stuff in Minneapolis, and it never goes there. And then you read little disclaimers in, when you sign the thing that this money is, can be used as seen fit by, an organization. But if they're baiting and switching people, yeah, that becomes a problem. The Arlington Young Democrats, a club of young liberals living just outside D.C., many of whom work as staffers in the Capitol, endorsed standwithme.com as well. And that's fine. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But people should know that these groups are collecting money and funding activities that are backed by communists and socialists who do not believe in democracy and do not believe in a republic. Just so you know. You hear a lot of Democrats screaming, Trump is a Nazi, Trump is a fascist, Trump is this. And they're giving money to groups that support communists, that support fascism, that support communism, that don't support democracy, that don't support a republic. And these low IQ people think, we're going to save America. You're not. You're not. You're working against America. Now, you can protest, and peaceful protest, I keep saying that, is great. It is the voice of the people and the voice of all American citizens. That is fine. Protest, chant, sing, collect money, collect signatures, all perfectly legit and perfectly allowed, and I support their right to do that, as long as the money is being used for what they're saying it's used for. And they should know that we contribute to socialists and communists, and we don't support a democracy, and we don't support a republic. They don't do that. They don't say that. So people like me have to come out and say it, and then a person of a lower IQ will go, no, you're a communist, no, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi. And I go, well, maybe that would be true if I was donating to the group that you just donated to. Bob in New York. So, a lot of chatter on paid protesters. So the fact of using paid protesters is a question being investigated by multiple federal agencies. There is proof of paid protesters being used in some states, and that's some ICE and anti-Trump protesters. And yes, there are companies that do offer direct protesters for protest rallies. Crowds on Demand is a prominent company that specializes in hiring individuals to participate in protest and other events for compensation. So these people aren't there because of their true political or social convictions. They're there because they're being paid to be there. Now, normally, if you went and peppered property with gold and then told people to come onto the property, search the property, and these people find gold and think there's gold there, that was called salting. Illegal. I see what they're doing. It's not illegal, but it's highly questionable if an organization is sending paid protesters there. Why? Why? And then who's behind it and who's paying for it? Are these people being, are they filing their taxes? Is the company paying Social Security on them? Are the companies paying their fair share? They're hiring, and they might say these are 1099 hires and it's their responsibility. Well, that company then has to also have made sure that the Social Security numbers matches the names, and there's a whole things that a lot of these companies do or don't do. Paid protesters are typically compensated in the low hundreds of dollars, with event packages ranging from $1,000 to over $10,000. So we're talking lots of money here. Lots of money being shelled out there. And then by who? And of course, this practice raises ethical questions, as it can undermine the authenticity of a true grassroots movement. But it is a legitimate way to support causes and make a living. So it's legal. It could be considered unethical. And when a grassroots movement, and there might be people in that grassroots movement that have no idea that somehow people in their organization used money to pay these groups or got outside support to use people that don't care less about your grassroots movement. They're just there to collect a check. And they're told what to chant, where to stand, where to hold the sign. They're essentially a prop. Companies like Crowds on Demand have seen a significant increase in requests for paid protesters, especially during high-profile political events. Now, again, that's salting a gold mine. The news reports say, hundreds of protesters showed up today, and that shows that the people of this town, and there might be 20 or 30 of them being paid to be there and chant those slogans and run in front of the news cameras. And this trend is a broader debate about the role of money in modern activism and the implications of hiring paid participants. Actors, props. They go home, they could care less. No meat, eat green. No meat, eat green. And then they go and, stop at McDonald's and get a burger, or they cook a steak, or they eat fish, or they eat green. Who knows? But they're not part of the movement. Now, they could be part of the movement, and they could go, hey, if I can get paid doing it, and I do support that, well, all right. But you're still a paid protester. Now, we know for a fact that there are professional community organizers that are involved in the protests. These are people who are part of those grassroots movements who now are taking money and direction from other people. Evidence shows a large part of these are volunteer protest movements in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis. So what movements, or not movements, what fact-checking, let's say, and this was done by NPR, says that, yes, they could be organized, outside organized leaders of these grassroots movements that are then funded. The accusations that protesters are paid is frequently a talking point to dismiss the legitimacy of grassroots activism and criticism of the government. Well, again, see, that's a tilt on words by NPR, who say that, well, that undermines by saying that of grassroots movement. Well, if they're paid, we're not undermining it. We're just pointing it out that these are paid protesters. And yes, there could be a sprinkle of grassroots movement people in there, and people that really believe in that cause. But it does get diluted and has less of a meaning when you find out that, hold it, that guy screaming in front of the camera and that person over there is doing that, and this person running up and down the street chanting, and they're being paid to do that. And again, it doesn't take the legitimacy of that grassroots movement away, but it makes you think, who's paying for that? Is the grassroots movement paying for it? Or is it outside influencers? And why? Why did they need paid protesters there? Why didn't they get enough local activism? Because maybe there wasn't enough people in that community that was behind the cause of the socialists or communists. So they had to bring in people. Can that not be the case, Bob, in New York? Bob and I debate a lot of this stuff all the time on the phone. And then we laugh and we have a good time with it. But these are legitimate questions. And his feeling sometimes is that this stuff is being brought up and there's no reason to bring it up. It's not germane to what's going on. Yeah, I don't know. I will say Congress thinks otherwise, Bob. Congressional investigations of people such as George Soros and the American citizen Neville Roy Singham, now living in China, who are alleged to be funding paid professional protesters and organizers. Singham, they are alluding to, no proof yet, that the Communist Central Party, the CCP, is behind Singham, telling him this is what you need to do and who to fund. And he's doing it at the behest of, which makes him an agent of a foreign country, and he must register as that before he can release money. And he has not, and they subpoenaed him, and Singham very in the near future might have his access to banking blocked. So, protesters sometimes engage organized efforts funded by donations from Democratic-controlled organizations to interfere with police, particularly during immigration raids, arrests, or high-tension demonstrations. Tactics include creating human barricades, blocking traffic, and using cameras for oversight. Now, using a camera for oversight, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you are not interfering with the police, you're on a sidewalk, you are not actively involved in the situation other than recording it. Now, you could be saying, no police, no arrest, no police, whatever. And that's fine. You can do that. Just don't interfere with the police or incite others to interfere, because that's a crime. These actions can result in arrest, as interfering or physically touching officers is illegal. Can't do that. If you charge at a police officer and he pushes you back because you are now in his personal space, you might not get arrested for that. But if you come and contact that police officer without him contacting and pushing you back because you crossed over a line, or you say, hey, you're off the sidewalk, we're going to either march you back to that sidewalk or we're going to arrest you. And that's perfectly legitimate of the police to do. They have the right to restore order. Failure then to listen to the police is a crime. You get arrested. The tactics and trainings of these paid professional organizers and organizations include active obstruction. Professional protesters have been trained in the use of using tactics such as blocking police vehicles, forming human chains to stop arrests, or physically obstructing officers. Now that gets you in big trouble. You use a vehicle to try to stop the police or anything like that, and the police, even in their car, if you're going and you bump, you're using a weapon against a police officer, you could be shot dead. And this has happened. You can't do that. Using yourself to block an arrest, you're going to be arrested too. Or physically obstructing an officer in the course of him carrying out his duties. Going to get you arrested, folks. That's what happens. Direct confrontation. Some protests involved agitators who may throw objects brought to the protest at law enforcement, leading to dangerous encounters. You see this all the time. They're throwing bricks. How did they get a brick there? There was no brick on the ground on that sidewalk. They brought it with them, with the intent to throw it. So when you see these protesters come with backpacks on, and the police start observing them, and then they start acting hinky, at that point, the police couldn't have probable cause to go and stop you and go, what's in the bag? You're at a protest, things are being thrown. We're not seeing this stuff on the street, so how's it getting here? Then, of course, they fight and stuff happens. But this is the agenda of these Democrat-funded groups to go in there with agitators. This is why police look at protesters who bring backpacks to protest rallies. Now, they could just have a coat in there or their sandwich and a soda or whatever. You know, water in there in case they get tear gas, then they could pour it on themselves or whatever. That's fine. Perfectly legitimate. Now, if you take that water bottle and hurl it, you're going to be arrested. But what they do is they put a whole bunch of people in front, and then these people are doing it from behind. There's not enough police in the background, but they got people in that crowd. They're going to grab you. Now, when they grab you, then the other people try to break them away and, stop an arrest from happening. Then, game on. Game on. So, strategic training by these organizations that are behind communist and socialist organization and funding. Strategic training, some advocacy groups train participants in techniques, like I was talking about, but also in techniques of de-escalation. Taking a situation that they see getting out of hand and going, whoa, 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 everyone, step back. Take a deep breath. And how to de-escalate a situation. There are groups that train that. That, if emotions get too high, they step in and get between them and go, whoa, 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 no, don't do that. And they look at the police, before you step in, let us get them back on the sidewalk. And the police would usually step back and go, all right, we're going to give you the one chance here. They step off it again. You've been warned. Now we just come in and get you. So they will use legal observation rather than physical interference. And again, maybe someone with a camera, and this guy's just standing there watching everything that goes on. Then the next thing you know, the police are grabbing him and, saying, you're part of the, you were part, and no, I was just watching. I was here. I wasn't doing any of that. And they arrest him anyway. And now there's legitimate proof that that guy was just standing there. He was standing there the whole time we have him on it. He didn't throw anything. He didn't do anything. And they arrested him, and he should not have been arrested. And that happens. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. And that's when using a camera or using that legitimately and tactfully works out. Works out for that guy. That guy, he got charged, but now they drop it and they let him go. But in the meantime, this guy could have lost his job. Or this guy, has to go there and post a $50 bond that he might not have. Or has to then go back to court and with an attorney that he might not be able to afford. And, someone has to make that tape available to show. And that's a lot of ifs for a guy that didn't do nothing. Escalation dynamics. Research indicates that when protesters perceive police as treating them, their cause, or their peers unfairly, they are more likely to engage in confrontation or violence. Now, the police can't take your perception into account. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see the future. But if you're acting in a manner that is contrary to the law, you can expect consequences. And I don't understand this idea of thinking that you can do something illegal and somehow think that it's can be made legal. It's not. It can't. Just as if a police officer does something that is illegal, the police can't say, well, he's a policeman, he can do that. It just doesn't work that way. It might have in the past, the blue wall. I mean, yeah, did that happen? Sure, that happened. And people who use the law and followed through with it and went in there and changed those policies and made laws. That's what this is all about. That's what the Constitution says you can do and should do. But to say, I'm going to pick and choose what laws I obey, well, good luck to you. Let's see how that works out for you. Now, in the recent days, the Trump administration has stated it is going to reduce the number of agents in Minnesota, but only if the state and local police provide protection for federal agents. Federal agents will still be used to protect federal property and buildings in Minnesota. So the administration is saying, okay, you want us to ratchet this down a bit, we'll ratchet it down. But you got to do your part now. And failure to do your part will just open the door for us to come back in, and there's no more talking. You attack an ICE agent, you attack his car, you attack a building, you trespass when we tell you don't come on here. This area is now closed, and There's no official business being done here. If you come onto the property after you're being told you cannot, you will be arrested for trespassing. And a host of other, believe me, there'll be a host of other in there. I think that the administration is going to give Minnesota all the rope it needs to hang themselves. I think this is bigger than Tim Walz, that he has no control over it because he was a stooge. I mean, the things that he has come out and said, and his actions, and everything he's done, and he goes, this happened because we're such a generous state. The most moronic thing I've ever heard a politician say. You didn't do your job. And now we're finding out where state officials lied on reports on audit proceedings that were supposed to be being done. This is going to be a slaughter. Illinois, Maine, Virginia, New Jersey, New York. The Democrats are doomed during the midterms. I cannot see the Democrats pulling out of this by 2028. I just don't see it happening. I think there is so much goodies that the Republicans have. They just don't know which one to use first. Do we save this one for the last? Or do we use this one first and then bring out the rest of this stuff? I think that's what's going on. Now, again, as I said, with the Democratic fraud, I call it Democratic fraud, but I'm going to tell you right now, every state has fraud. Because where there's government money, being a red Republican or being a blue Democrat doesn't matter. It's all about the green. So there is corruption in every state. To the extent, again, and who knew and who should have known, and what policies you had in there to try to find this and stop it before it happens. Those are going to be the big questions. And those can be embarrassing questions for Republicans. Because if you find a lot of fraud in Florida, if you find a lot of fraud in Texas and other red states that are as comparable, can you say that this is a Democrat problem or a blue problem? No, and I said, that's why I said, you got to be careful. You don't know what you don't know. I think that in a lot of red states, there's a lot more looking. And, you know, they try not to show up on the radar when there is hanky-panky. And I think the Democrats just do it, they don't care. They do it with impunity. We don't, you know. Because if you come to us, we're going to call you a racist. We're going to call you a fascist. We're going to call you a Nazi. And you're trying to lump us all in one group to get, well, yeah, it's called criminals. So, all right. This is going on now for 45 minutes. It's a Sunday. We got about 4.5 inches of snow here in South Carolina in the Myrtle Beach area. The last time I looked, I think it was 29 degrees outside. Hopefully by Tuesday, it'll be up into the upper 40s. Wednesday, I think it's supposed to be 50 and rain, so this will all be gone. But we are expected some more cold weather coming. Is what it is, folks. Is what it is. All right, everyone, please, I ask people to give to a charity if you can. If you're uncomfortable with giving to a charity, please think about giving to a food bank. They always can use food. They could always use a monetary donation so they can expedite a problem that's in front of them right now in food logic, food quantity, or whatever terminology, food security. And when you give locally like that, it stays locally and it helps people in your community. And you do it without the idea, well, they deserve it, that's their own fault, no. Give because that's what you should do. Not foolishly give, but give to organizations that help people, that actually go out and help people. Not like in Minneapolis, Illinois, Maine, Virginia. Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada. All right. I forgot to mention Arizona. With that, I'm going to say, please say a prayer because prayer does work, regardless of what a Democrat might tell you. And everyone be safe, and I'll catch you tomorrow, where I might be doing a prediction show on how well the Republicans will do in 2028. So I'm working on that. It's going to take a little time because there's a lot of stuff floating around, and there's still people moving who are saying, I don't know if I'm going to run this year. I don't know what my plans are, or I'm uncommitted at this time. So that kind of throws some stuff out. All right, everyone, as I fade to black, be safe.